Number 1.
Rose Cobo last heard from her adopted daughter, Chelsea, on the night of May 6, 2016. Trying to keep busy in the first 24 hours before she reported her missing, the Borough Park mother did two simple things she now regrets. She went grocery shopping and made Chelsea's favorite meal, a simple dish of rice and lentils. She also did the young woman's laundry. It took Rose more than 2 years to go grocery shopping again. And she now laments washing away her daughter's scent, a fresh, sweet odor layered with her favorite Juicy Couture perfume, which Rose now occasionally wears. Nearly 3 years after Chelsea's disappearance, questions rumble through Rose's mind like clothes in a spin cycle. "My life has been like a washing machine," said Rose, who turns 55 on Saturday. "I'm just turned, tossed, is she alive? Is she dead? Is she here? Is she there? Is she being held somewhere? Is she being trafficked? Or is she deceased?" she added. "So it's an emotional roller coaster, because I don't know." Chelsea's is among 216 open missing persons cases in New York City, according to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, a nationwide database run by the National Institute of Justice. Those people have disappeared from every borough. They include infants and the elderly. Some were last contacted just a month ago. Others have been missing for decades. And they account for more than a third of the 623 open missing persons cases across New York State, the system's figures show. The third anniversary of Chelsea's disappearance almost exactly aligns with the city's Missing Persons Day event, which was held May 4. The biannual gathering, sponsored by the Office of Chief Medical Examiner, aims to aid the loved ones of missing people in their searches and connect them with resources that they might not know about. The event has led to the identification of 7 missing people in the metropolitan area since it started in 2014, according to the office, which is known as OCM. While the families who attend may have accepted that their missing loved one may no longer be alive, officials say the event gives them some hope. "I don't want to use the word happy, but they see that they could find some kind of closure when they come here and see all the resources that they have here," said Yasser Hernandez, a criminalist at OCM. "And some of them, actually, they just want someone else to tell their stories and someone who can listen to them." Rose Cobo attended the last event in 2017, where she gave a DNA sample to the OCM. Cobo has also handed over samples from Chelsea's young son and other family members. This year she planned to bring some teeth from when Chelsea was young. Samples from family members can help investigators identify human remains as missing people by comparing their DNA, officials say. Material from the missing person's personal items like hairbrushes and toothbrushes can be even more effective, Hernandez said, as they allow the OCM to make a direct comparison between the sample and the office's database. "There's still some people that they don't know that we do this job, and that's what we're trying to do, to have that information so people can come to us and get the help that they deserve," said Veronica Cano, another OCM criminalist. DNA is just one of the many tactics Cobo has used in her search for Chelsea, from blanketing Brooklyn neighborhoods with thousands of flyers to hiring private investigators to camping out in a subway station. It's all in the pursuit of solving a mystery. Chelsea's 2016 disappearance capped a turbulent few months for the then 22-year-old mom, according to Rose, who is her biological aunt. Chelsea's biological mother had died in late February, less than a year after Chelsea gave birth to her son. Chelsea became emotionally overwhelmed and went to Coney Island Hospital for an evaluation in late March, Rose said. Her roommate in the hospital was a woman who was struggling with a drug problem. The roommate had a male visitor, and the three stayed in touch after Chelsea checked out on April 15. Through the roommate, Chelsea fell into a crowd that got her hooked on opioids, Rose says. She went out one night in late April and returned unresponsive and bruised, according to her mother. I'm sure she was robbed. I'm sure she was drugged. And I believe that she was also raped, Rose said. About a week went by. Rose said Chelsea bought her a bear and some flowers for her birthday on May 4. 2 days later, Rose recalled, she came to her mother and said, "I need help." Rose brought Chelsea to Lutheran Hospital in Sunset Park, where a nurse practitioner recommended sending her to Yonkers to detox. She was brought there only to be picked up later by the man who visited her and the roommate in the Coney Island hospital, Rose said. Chelsea said that she was going to find a new program to help her the next day, according to Rose. The pair last spoke at 11:35 that night. Later, Rose got a message from the male visitor saying he had dropped her off back in Brooklyn. "With that my heart starts racing," Rose said. "She never came home," she said. "It's not like my daughter to not be in communication." Rose is uncertain what happened to Chelsea. Her body has not been found if she is dead, Rose said, because it likely would have matched some DNA if it had been. It was thought at one point that she may have been ensnared by human trafficking, but the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office could not prove that was the case, Rose said. "There's not a second in my life or a blink in my eye that I don't send positive energy out to the universe to allow Chelsea to either free herself or reveal herself," Rose said. In her absence, Rose has a piece of Chelsea and her son, whom Rose is raising with her life partner, Gina. The 3-year-old is a spitting image of his mother, Rose said, so much so that he sometimes makes her think she's playing with Chelsea. The boy knows Rose is his grandmother, and he has an awareness of Mommy Chelsea, as he calls her. But he reminds Rose not to be so sad. "I have a feeling he actually might have saved my life, because without him, I don't know he gives me the strength to carry on," Rose said. When Chelsea was a girl herself, she wrote Rose a poem for her 40th birthday, listing 40 reasons why she loved her. One line resonates with Rose. "When I lose something I know you will be on this search."
Number 2.
During the early morning hours of December 2, 2016, Danielle posted this self-portrait to Instagram with the caption, "November Danielle, complete?" Danielle had been very active on Instagram throughout 2016, and her artwork was often the subject of her posts. Just weeks earlier, Danielle had posted that she was going to draw and post a self-portrait each month, and November Danielle was her very first one. She posted the picture from her Farmington Hills, Michigan home around 2:30 a.m. before going to bed. Hours later, Danielle awoke to go to her job at MetLife in Southfield. While at work, she made plans to meet one of her close friends for dinner. Danielle left work around 5 p.m. She planned to stop by her apartment before meeting up with her friend. Unfortunately, Danielle never showed up to meet her friend, and all calls to her phone went straight to voicemail. Danielle's friend was not too worried at first, she simply assumed that Danielle fell asleep after work. However, the next afternoon, Danielle's friend learned that she had failed to show up for her 8 a.m. shift at MetLife. This prompted her to drive by Danielle's apartment to check on her. Upon arriving, Danielle's friend found her car parked in its usual spot. It was locked, and her purse, credit cards, identification and other personal items were inside. Danielle was not inside her apartment. It is believed that Danielle left all of those items in her car on purpose on the evening of December 2, as she simply planned to change clothes then return to her car to go meet her friend. After searching both Danielle's car and apartment, it was determined that the only things that Danielle had with her when she vanished were her keys, cell phone, and clothes on her back. Just a few weeks after Danielle's disappearance, on December 19, 2016, Farmington Hills police announced that they believed Danielle was a victim of a crime. 3 days later, Police searched the residence of Floyd Galloway Jr., 30, in Berkeley, Michigan. Floyd was previously a security guard at the MetLife building where Danielle worked. Floyd was not employed there on December 2, 2016, but many witnesses have come forward claiming that they saw Danielle and Floyd together in the MetLife parking lot on that evening. The police ended up searching Floyd's home numerous times in the months after Danielle's disappearance, and they seized numerous items throughout those searches. Still, Danielle remained missing, and Floyd was not initially charged with anything related to her disappearance. On June 28, 2017, Floyd was arrested for the attempted rape of another 28-year-old woman in Livonia. The woman says that she was jogging in Hines Park when Floyd grabbed her from behind by the neck and choked her, punched her in the face, and began dragging her into the woods toward the Rouge River. Luckily, the woman was able to escape and call 911. Meanwhile, Floyd continued to deny involvement in Danielle's case. However, in 2019, Floyd was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in connection to the disappearance of Danielle Stislicki. He pleaded guilty to unrelated kidnapping and sexual assault charges back in 2017 and remains behind bars today. In September 2019, Floyd pleaded not guilty to the charges. He is expected to go to trial in October 2021. Danielle's remains have still not been found.
Number 3.
Ebonee Spears has been missing since January 15, 2016. The 30-year-old woman was last seen near her home in Wilmington, North Carolina. According to her family members, Ebonee was acting strangely in the hours leading up to her disappearance. At some point between 5:30 and 7 p.m., Ebonee's friend saw her walking up and down Nixon Street. The friend sensed that something was wrong, so he picked Ebonee up and took her to the nearby community Boys and Girls Club. He told her to wait right there for him, but instead Ebonee walked to the local police station. She asked to use a telephone, and she was directed to a payphone. Ebonee reportedly was then heard cursing and storming off. Ebonee then went back to the Boys and Girls Club. According to witnesses, she started to head home from the club around 8:30 or 9 p.m. Ebonee was last seen around her apartment around 10:45 p.m. At that point, she approached a man outside of her building and asked if she could bum a cigarette. The man told her that he did not have any left. Ebonee then muttered something about going to the store and walked away. She has never been seen or heard from again. Approximately 15 minutes later, around 11 p.m., Ebonee's boyfriend arrived at her apartment and let himself inside. Ebonee was not inside the apartment, but her car was parked outside of the building as usual. However, her phone was missing from the apartment and it went straight to voicemail when her boyfriend tried to call her. Her boyfriend waited 2 hours for her to return, and when she did not, he contacted Ebonee's parents. Ebonee's parents reported her missing the following afternoon. Ebonee was diagnosed with lupus shortly before her disappearance. She was reportedly telling people that her medicine was messing with her head. Her parents were worried about her mental health shortly before her disappearance as well. However, they do not believe Ebonee would voluntarily abandon her daughter. Due to her condition, Ebonee has been classified as an at-risk missing person. If you have any information that could lead to her whereabouts, please contact the Wilmington Police at 910-343-3600.
Number 4.
4 days after posting this image, on May 6, 2016, Kianna Galvin vanished. She was last seen when she left her family's home in South Elgin, Illinois around 12:30 p.m. after telling her younger sister that she was meeting up with a friend at a nearby park. Kianna said she would only be gone for a few hours, but she never returned at all. When her mother, Fiona Galvin, returned from work that afternoon, she realized Kianna was still not home. When Fiona called Kianna's cell phone, it went straight to voicemail. For the rest of the 6th, and for the entirety of the 7th, Fiona's mother attempted to reach out to Kianna numerous times with no luck. Finally, on May 8, 2016, Kianna was reported missing. For whatever reason, numerous agencies initially classified Kianna as a runaway. However, investigators from South Elgin PD do not believe that she left on her own accord. She has no prior history of running away, and she left numerous personal items at home such as her wallet, phone charger, and purse. There has been no activity on her social media accounts or her bank accounts since May 6, 2016. Kianna had been on juvenile probation prior to vanishing, but her probationary period had recently ended prior to her disappearance. She also had recently ended a relationship around this time. The ex-boyfriend has apparently been interviewed numerous times, and police do not consider him a person of interest at this time. A little over 2 years after Kianna's disappearance, investigators released additional details about what they believe happened to Kianna. Instead of going to the park, as her family believed, Kianna went to buy marijuana from a man at his home on Revere Road. For unclear reasons, investigators have not identified the man at this time. However, they believe Kianna was assaulted and murdered by this man shortly after she vanished. When police questioned him, he told them that Kianna never actually entered his house and left by 12:45 p.m. while texting another man. Phone records dispute this, as Kianna was not texting with anyone else around that time. Additionally, court documents state that Kianna's phone was disconnected from the cellular network at 1:10 p.m. in a manner that would be indicative of the battery being removed or the cell phone being destroyed. The man's next-door neighbor also disputed his claims. The neighbor told police that he saw Kianna entering the man's house the day she vanished. The neighbor also reported seeing blood on the man's garbage can lid nearly a week later. That blood was later confirmed to belong to Kianna. The man suspected of killing Kianna is currently serving a 15-year prison sentence for assaulting another woman. He has still not been charged with anything in connection to Kianna's case, and Kianna remains missing today. Police are still investigating. If you have any information about Kianna and/or her whereabouts, please contact the South Elgin Police Department at 847-741-2151.
Number 5.
Lashaya's family describes her as smart and kind. She was set to graduate from high school early and wanted to go to nursing school. She was on the honor roll at George Washington High School. Lashaya was accepted into an internship program and had a job interview lined up at 1 p.m. on the day she went missing. But Lashaya was also described as sheltered and naive. Her mother, Sabrina Jones, said of Lashaya, "She is more naive than most. I know my daughter, and she would be easy to control and manipulate." It's why Sabrina thinks Lashaya was lured out of the family's home in July 2016 and has not been seen or heard from since. Lashaya was last seen on a surveillance camera walking near a bus stop in the 1600 block of North Peoria Street at 2:23 a.m. When her brother went to wake up Lashaya to get ready for her job interview, she was discovered missing. A check of Lashaya's bedroom showed that her window was unlocked, leading her mother to believe Lashaya planned to return home. Lashaya did not take any extra clothes or her wallet. There was also a flower pot underneath the window outside of Lashaya's bedroom, which her mother thinks Lashaya may have used in a failed attempt to get back into the house. But nothing is known for certain. Cops wrote Lashaya off as being a runaway in the immediate days after her disappearance. The family did all of the legwork, driving around, taking tips and following up on them. A look into her social media accounts showed nothing out of the ordinary. However, Lashaya's mother is adamant that Lashaya went to meet someone and has not been allowed to return home. Many of the tips she's gotten all share a commonality: anonymous callers who say Lashaya is being sex trafficked. Many also point to a man that callers are too afraid to identify. A pimp in the Aurora area offered to help get Lashaya back during an undercover operation. He said Lashaya was under constant watch by the man keeping her. That didn't pan out. Another call came to Lashaya's family that she was at a motel. When police arrived, the room Lashaya was said to be in was empty, but there was female clothing inside the room. Sabrina says that someone in the area told one of her friends that Lashaya had been moved from the motel 5 minutes before the police arrived to another motel and then driven away in a navy blue SUV. Lashaya has been seen in Kansas, Wyoming, and other parts of Colorado. A young woman at an outreach center for women and girls who have escaped sex trafficking reported that she was trafficked with Lashaya. She said that Lashaya wanted to go home, but that she was afraid, probably of what her family would think of her. This year will mark 4 years since Lashaya has been missing. Her family is desperate for her family to return. Lashaya, before her disappearance, was around 150 pounds and is said to be now about 120 pounds. She is also said to be seen wearing a straight wig. It definitely seems like Lashaya is being trafficked, but tips have stalled and Lashaya's family hasn't heard much. One interesting thing Lashaya's mother mentions in the podcast is that once before, Lashaya disappeared for around 20 minutes and that it was completely out of character for her. I'm not sure how Lashaya got in contact with the man she is said to be with, and Lashaya's mom says that a lot of the people who contacted her about knowing Lashaya are complete strangers as well. I really hope if she's still alive that she manages to escape and return home.
Number 6.
On July 4, 2016, most of Troy, Alabama's 19,000 residents were preparing for the annual fireworks show. Lelia Faulkner, 29, was one of those residents. She had recently moved home to live with her parents Rick and Susan Faulkner following a breakup with her live-in boyfriend. Lelia's daughter Madison, then 7, had already been living with her grandparents. Susan and Rick had become the primary guardians for their granddaughter shortly after her birth. Susan told Dateline that around 7 p.m. on the 4th, she and her husband were upstairs getting Madison ready for the Independence Day events when they heard Lelia leave out the front door. Lelia had not planned on going to the Independence Day events that night with her family, so Susan and Rick weren't concerned when they heard her leave. She had left right before we had, but we didn't see the car that picked her up, so we do not know who she left with or if she walked up the road, Susan told Dateline. When Lelia didn't arrive home the next morning, the Faulkners told Dateline they still weren't worried because it wasn't unusual for Lelia to stay away from home for a night or two. But as 3 more days came and went with no contact from Lelia, Susan says she and Rick did grow concerned. It was unlike Lelia. Usually I hear from her every day, even when she was living with her ex-boyfriend Blaine, Susan said. She would always call me or get in contact with me just about every day by either calling or texting. On July 7, 2016, Susan and Rick decided to notify the Pike County Sheriff's Office that Lelia was missing. The family had come in and they said she left on the 4th of July and hadn't seen or heard from her since, Lieutenant Troy Johnson of the Pike County Sheriff's Office told Dateline. However, Lieutenant Johnson said the Faulkners were not allowed to file a missing persons report at that time because Lelia was a 29-year-old female who has a history of up and leaving and not having contact with anyone. Police and family both told Dateline that this, indeed, was not Lelia's first time disappearing. She had disappeared about a year or so before this incident, and the family did not do a missing persons report. But they did report she was gone and to be on the lookout for her, Lieutenant Johnson said. Lelia's mother Susan confirmed this account to Dateline and said her daughter had come home a few days later. But this time didn't seem to be the same. Lieutenant Johnson told Dateline that, before police became involved, he advised the family to check with all of Lelia's friends to see if they knew where she was. So in the weeks immediately following Lelia's 2016 disappearance, Susan and Rick searched for their daughter and followed up on tips themselves. Susan told Dateline that one of their first steps was to create a Facebook page called Help Find Lelia Faulkner, which has now amassed over 1,400 followers. Family and friends also created flyers and billboards to put up around town. The rumors we heard, we checked them all out. But we had to do it by ourselves because the police wouldn't come and search these places with us, Susan told Dateline. One of the rumors, Susan said, was that Lelia might have been seen at a party in Spring Hill, about 15 minutes away from home, on the night she disappeared. However, they were never able to confirm the sighting. 2 weeks after Lelia's disappearance, her parents, having exhausted their search, returned to the Pike County Sheriff's Office and, this time, were able to file a missing persons report. The Faulkners soon listed a $5,000 reward for information leading to Lelia's safe return, which has now grown to $10,000. Tips did come in, but Lieutenant Johnson told Dateline he believes the offer of a cash reward may be the reason why. The lieutenant says that authorities did survey some of the areas where Lelia was allegedly seen the night she went missing, but they did not think the claims warranted cadaver dogs to be used in the searches. A lack of substantial leads prompted Lelia's family to solicit outside help from Halo Investigations, a non-profit organization dedicated to combating trafficking and exploitation of children. With Halo, we normally do people 21 and under, but we have taken a few adult cases over time, Barbara Hastings, case manager at Halo Investigations, told Dateline. After hearing of Lelia's case in 2016, Hastings reached out to the Faulkners, and she and her team have since worked with authorities to organize searches and distribute flyers around town. Lieutenant Troy Johnson has been excellent working with us and giving us information. And, of course, we give them anything that we have and turn it over, Hastings said. Lieutenant Johnson and Barbara Hastings both say this case is abnormal because they've been unable to trace Lelia at all. Lelia's cell phone has not pinged and her bank accounts have not been accessed since her disappearance. Authorities later searched Lelia's parents' home, phone records and computers, but Halo Investigations' Barbara Hastings told Dateline there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that showed she reached out to anyone to pick her up that night. However, upon searching Lelia's mother Susan's phone, authorities found text messages from Lelia to her mother saying she was afraid of her ex-boyfriend, Blaine Gralier. The text messages, Susan told Dateline, also said that, if anything happened to Lelia, authorities should investigate Blaine. Police confirmed the text messages to Dateline and said they had been sent about 6 days before Lelia went missing. Susan also told Dateline that shortly before Lelia's disappearance, her daughter had told her she was pregnant by a man other than Blaine. We believe that one of the arguments between Blaine and Lelia was because she was with Blaine and ended up getting pregnant by another guy. That's probably why they had the bad breakup. But I could never get him to tell me that, Lieutenant Johnson told Dateline. Blaine Gralier did not reply to Dateline's request for comment by Sunday afternoon. We've done all we can in terms of looking into Blaine, Lieutenant Johnson said, adding that authorities at the Pike County Sheriff's Office have interviewed him a few times and had him take a polygraph test. The polygraph examiner said the test was kind of inconclusive. They did not think he was being completely truthful. Lieutenant Johnson requested a second polygraph test, administered by a different examiner, to be performed. This time, Growlier refused to take it. He has not been interviewed by authorities since. Lieutenant Johnson told Dateline that because there is no evidence directly connecting Blaine to Lelia's disappearance, he cannot make Blaine come in for further questioning. It's been 2 years since Lelia vanished, and her mother Susan says tips still come in. "We got an anonymous tip saying that her body was buried up under one of the fire pits near the party where she was allegedly last seen, and the sheriff's department did take cadaver dogs there to search," Susan told Dateline. Lieutenant Johnson said authorities excavated that site and brought cadaver dogs, but no significant evidence was found. As with any mother of a missing child, Susan still clings to hope that one day Lelia will appear. "We just want her to come home," she says. "We love her, and we miss her so much." And Madison worshipped the ground her mama walked on. But Susan is also a realist, given the amount of time that has now passed. "I truly believe the rumors we have heard," she admitted. "And it's just a matter of us finding her body." Lelia Faulkner is described as being 5'6" and weighed roughly 125 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She has blonde hair and blue eyes and was last seen wearing a blue jean skirt, a white tank top and white shoes. If you have any information on Lelia Faulkner's whereabouts, please call the Contact the Pike County Sheriff's Office at 334-566-4347.
Number 7.
On March 24, 2016, Lori Dee Wilson hopped out of a ground floor window at a Juneau drug treatment center. She hasn't been seen since. When Lori Dee's family sent her to Juneau for drug treatment, it wasn't only an attempt to better her life, but a medical necessity. When Lori Dee was 8 years old, she was accidentally served a glass of what was thought to be juice, but was actually from a container of caustic, lye-based detergent that had been left out on a counter at a community event in Dillingham, Alaska. The detergent severely burned her esophagus, leaving her with lifelong injuries. The litigation related to this negligence reached the Alaska Supreme Court. Ever since the incident, Lori Dee has traveled to Seattle at least once a year for a procedure to dilate her esophagus and to keep scar tissue and swelling from dangerously constricting her throat. She has undergone this procedure over 200 times. However, Lori Dee's opioid addiction heightened the risk of anesthesia involved in the procedure, so her family sought to place her in a drug treatment center. Lori Dee has never gone this long without having the esophageal dilation procedure and is now likely to be unable to eat or breathe. On March 16, 2016, before she headed to rehab, Lori Dee wrote a letter to her sons. "Mama is in a safe place right now, far away. I will be back when they say I am good and all better, just a little while longer, and we will be back with each other." Lori Dee's family has not lost hope, noting Lori Dee has never not contacted her kids for this length of time. Not a year, not like that. Lori Dee's disappearance falls into a wrenching gray area of adults with addictions who are suddenly nowhere to be found. Is the person missing because something terrible has happened to them? Or have they disappeared on purpose in an effort to get away from the mess addiction has made of their lives? Lori Dee was 30 years old at the time of her disappearance. She is Native American, has brown hair, brown eyes, and pierced ears. She has marks on both arms, wrists and hands, and scars on her upper lip, forehead and the right side of her upper abdomen. If you have information about Lori Dee, please contact the Juneau Police Department at 907-586-0600. My goal in posting about Lori Dee and other missing women is to highlight the scant attention paid to the disappearance of missing minority women in the media. The title of this post comes from Lee Carroll's article on REFINERY29, linked below, which focused on the cases of 5 missing women of color you should know about. The last 4 articles linked below have an extensive discussion on the reason for the discrepancy in reporting. For anyone interested in a scholastic approach, the linked article from the Journal of Criminal Law and Criminology does a good job of explaining the racial disparities by focusing on analyzing data gleaned from the missing individuals who appear in online news stories as compared to the overall missing population collected through FBI data.